Hi, thanks for tuning in to another edition of WorkComp Matters. My name is Steve Appel, and tonight we talk about the stories on WorkComp Central. We also talk about California politics, including but not limited to marijuana, the homeless, taxes, Gavin Newsom, and the whole ball of wax. Of course, we're brought to you by A1Law.com, A1Law.com, WorkCompCentral.com, and Santa Monica Tickets. Thanks for tuning in, and now here's the show.
Stand by SOT1.
Standing.
10 seconds. Ready, rollin'. Ready, SOT1.
Ready.
In 4, 3, 2, 1, roll in.
From the roundtable at legendary Uncle's Studios, welcome to another edition of WorkComp Matters, the central location for you employees, and of course we haven't forgotten about you independent contractors. My name is Steve Appel, and I'll be your host for the next hour with some talk news and hopefully some answers about WorkComp Matters. Thanks for being part of the show, and if you can break away from your WorkComp Matters, feel free to give us a call and clue us in with your questions, comments, and or concerns. The phone number worldwide, 818-357-4120. You can send me an email to wcexaminer@aol.com. Heck, you can be old school. Send me a fax, 818-475-1437. With me in studio, my right-hand man, Dr. Michael Zyma, my protege, attorney Robert Ozeron. Scott Walton of Uncle's Studio is engineering the show. Back in Munich, Germany, retired workers' compensation attorney John Scalia, back at WorkComp Central, making sure the whole damn thing goes right, is Kristen Chavez. Well, hello, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, everybody. Whenever you're listening to us, it is a podcast, and welcome to another edition of WorkComp Matters. We are brought to you by I made the same mistake last week. We are brought to you by the WorkCompCentral.com. If you want the number one location for workers' compensation, blogging, texting, credits, information, the whole ball of wax, check out WorkCompCentral.com. They have a free 7-day subscription, and you can pick up their services for literally $1 a day. And speaking of $1 a day, don't forget about A1 Law. A1 Law. If you want the number one computer management system used by more workers' compensation attorneys than any other system in the damn Kuiper Belt, give a call to 818-357-4120 for your no-strings-attached, money-back guarantee, $1 a day, A1 Law. And last but not least, we're brought to you by Santa Monica Tickets. If you want the number one location, we got them all, the number one locations for concerts, sports, theater tickets. Check out our buddy Brian at Santa Monica Tickets, 310-395-8587. Well, we got a lot of stories today, and we've got two WorkComp Central stories, which we're going to get into. Marijuana role in motor vehicle issues. We also have the Supreme Court won't disturb a District Court of Appeal ruling on apportionment. Those are the two WorkComp Central stories. We also have stories on more medical marijuana, baseball mega contracts. Disney apparently finalized their acquisition of 21st Century Fox. Waymo and Google open another issue technical service center. We've got forgotten funds in the state of California and a whole bunch more. But the first thing that I wanted to talk about tonight is a story on the homeless. We've spoken about the homeless before many times, and I'm just going to get right into it. There is a recent Los Angeles Police Department report that came out recently this month that says the number of crimes reports that describe people experiencing homelessness as either suspects or victims in crimes has increased by more than 50% in 2018. Most notably, the number of rapes attributed to suspects described as homeless have increased by 78%, and the number of serious assaults attributed to suspects described as homeless increased to 56%. According to the LAPD's fourth quarter report on homelessness, the homelessness crimes increase conflicts with an overall decrease in violent and serious crimes in Los Angeles during the same period, raising the possibility that the statistical change is more closely related to better data collection and analysis by the LAPD, city officials said. Now, breaking this down, crimes in Los Angeles in general have gone down, but crimes involving the homeless have gone up. And we've said this before. I've said this before on the show many times, that the homeless problem is simply getting worse and worse in California, and specifically Southern California. And really, no one's doing a damn thing about it.
The striking thing about those numbers to me is the percentage of victims who are homeless.
Well, I believe it spoke about both victims
and perps,
both homeless.
Right.
Now, Robert, I don't know where you park when you go to the Van Nuys WCAB, but of course, the office that Mike and I are into are about a block and a half north of the board and on Van Nuys Boulevard, and I walk down, and there is like a brand new encampment that's right in front of, I don't know if it's the state building or the federal building. The building is totally vacant. They have a for rent sign, but I can't believe anybody would want to rent there because you have a whole bunch, literally tents and sleeping bags, and the number of homeless in that area, it is on the east side of Van Nuys Boulevard between the WCAB, which would be Calvert, and Friar, which is between Oxnard and Victory, on the east side of the street. And it's just getting worse and worse. And, Mike and I were talking about this early, and I proposed the question to Mike, okay? We've got arguably 120, 130,000 homeless people in California. Half of them are in Southern California, and a whole slew are in Los Angeles County. And I propose the question, how come there's no homeless in Beverly Hills? How come there's no homeless in Bel Air? How come there's no homeless in Brentwood? Now, yes, of course, these three communities have one thing in common. They have the highest property values, probably the highest local source of income, but that's not why there's no homeless there. What did you say, Mike?
That they kick them the hell out?
They are not tolerant. There's zero tolerance on the vagrancy laws and or the loitering laws. They do not allow them to pitch their tent on the sidewalk. Okay?
Well, retail sales is very big in Beverly Hills, so you can't have retail sales if you have people that are homeless outside.
Which is an excellent point, Robert, because this encampment that I just referred to is on the east side of Van Nuys, where there are no retail sales. But if you go across the street, there's the Subway, there's the Chinese restaurant, there's the pizza place.
Well, I think everybody would want these homeless people to be out from their business. It doesn't matter if it's an office or a retail establishment. It's simply that this is a vacant retail establishment that you're telling me, or
it's
vacant office?
Vacant office building that has retail space on the ground floor.
Are they squatting? Are they in the office?
The building? It's the same people in the same tents. They're out in front. They've been there for months now.
Yeah. But there's no one to shoo them away. That's why. I would assume.
Well, there's no one working in the building to shoo them away. We, of course, have the police department is right around the corner.
Yeah, it's kind of a difficult situation for the building owner. It's hard to rent your premises if it's not attractive, right? If you got homeless people out front, and it's a tough spot. You have no money coming in, so you should call the police, technically, I guess, right?
Now, speaking of no money coming in, I'm so glad you brought that up, my boy. We've talked many times how there are billions, not millions, but billions of dollars sitting in the California General Fund that is earmarked for people with psychological and mental problems. Additionally, I just heard a stat on the way over to Uncle's today, and please verify this. If it's not true, let me know. California spends $100 billion a year in welfare, which is more than the next two largest states paying welfare combined. Okay? California spends more on taxes, more on social services, more on everything and anything for the poor, the disadvantaged, the disabled, yet they can't figure out what to do with the homeless. The money is there if we could figure out what to do with it. And I've said it on the show before, okay? We need some type of halfway house. We need some type of co-op.
In Barstow?
Well, halfway between here and Barstow, sure. But you know what? Even if not, put it right next to the VA. Hell, as far, you know what? Put it next to the police department. That would be okay with me, okay? And I am more than happy to have my tax dollars pay to have nurses and psychologists and people that specialize in mental disorder and the homeless running the place. Okay,
Try to get them back to work, I assume. Voc rehab of some sort, then.
Exactly. Also educating them. That's exactly correct. But the first key.
So you want to be their parent?
No, I want them off the street.
Well, yeah, but this is all assuming they're just going to comply with that. I'm sure they've had these options before in their life, and they've declined.
And Robert, you and I have spoken about the Santa Ana riverbed situation, where the Superior Court judge ruled that you can't exit them out of the Santa Ana riverbed until you have another place for them to go. Okay? I've got the place. Okay? We need to build those halfway houses. We need to build those co-ops.
Pointing on a map where there's no people and saying, right there, Judge, is the place is not exactly what I think the court has in mind.
Hey, we've got 24 WCABs up and down California. Why not have 12 homeless shelters? 100% funded by California tax dollars. I can think of a hell of a lot of other tax dollars that the California government uses that is not as important as this. Have 12 shelters based on population, have it totally funded, have a completely free policy. If you need a bed, if you need a meal, if you are homeless, you go in there. However, it's not completely free. It doesn't cost you anything. Okay?
Well, based on what we just read about victims and perps, there'd have to be a police presence there big time.
Well, I guess any other type of halfway
And you're going to
house.
offer medical attention to everybody there?
No question about it.
So what would prevent somebody from just walking in off the street and getting medical attention?
Well, here's the thing.
Like the millions of illegal immigrants in this country.
Okay, well, here's the thing. Okay, firstly, if you're homeless, you walk in. You have to show some ID. If you don't show some ID, you get fingerprinted and you get ID, okay? Then you're required to take a shower, okay? You have to take a shower.
Maybe
then
before the ID, even.
Okay,
Just
maybe.
to throw it out there.
Maybe. Then you get a free, call it a jumpsuit or call it jeans and a shirt, whatever the case may be. You get brand new, fresh, not a wardrobe, just clothing to wear. Your clothes, if necessary, they can be stored somewhere, I don't know, preferably burned or whatnot, but you get a new, fresh clothing. Then you get a complete evaluation, psychologically as well as physically, by a nurse and or a nurse and or a psychological professional.
What to do about a person who does not want to go? Do you force them?
I force them off the street.
So into the jail system is what you're saying?
No, I force them off the street because I have this place to go. I have this halfway house. I have this co-op. Therefore, I'm legally allowed to force them off the street. We have a place for you to go. The bed is free. The food is free. The shower is mandatory. And the medical examination is mandatory as well.
Would these people be free to leave?
They are free to leave anytime they want.
But you've placed these locations in such that it's difficult to leave at any time, right?
These are 12 locations that would be based on population. For example, in Los Angeles, out of 12, you're probably going to want 4. In San Francisco, you're probably going to want 2. In San Diego, you're probably going to want 2. That leaves another 4 throughout California based on the population of the homeless. But the key is, if they want to leave, they can leave. Oh, and by the way, once they come in, they have to, when they do the shower, they strip. They have to be checked for needles, drugs, the whole ball of wax. If a doctor needs to come in once a week or something like that, it's like the VA. I want it completely free, so there's no excuses. But while you're there, in addition to submitting to the shower and getting free food and getting a bed, you're also going to get time to be a little bit of education, whatever your level is. You also have to contribute to the shelter. You have to clean, or you have to organize, or you have to help other people. There are no free rides. But the first responsibility is to get them off the street. And we cannot legally get the homeless off the street unless we can offer them a place to go. I'm willing to pay my tax dollars to do this as long as this is done in the right way. I am sick and tired of our state legislators doing nothing about the homeless, because one thing's for certain, the problem is only getting worse. My name is Steve Appel. You're dialed into Work Comp Matters. We're brought to you by the WorkCompCentral.com. If you want the #1 location for workers' compensation, blogging, education, credits, the whole ball of wax, California, United States of America, check out the WorkCompCentral.com. It's only $1 a day. Heck, I have it. It's worth it. Also, if you want the #1 computer management system used by more workers' compensation attorneys than any other system in the damn Kuiper Belt, give us a call at 818-357-4120 for your no-strings-attached money-back guarantee, $1 a day, A1 Law. And last but not least, of course, we are sponsored by Santa Monica Tickets, 310-395-8587 for your front row sold-out sports, concerts, theater tickets. Well, he's my right-hand man. He's the chief of staff. He is literally known as the doctor with the first news story of the day. Go ahead and read the Work Comp Central story, one of the two. Dr. Michael Zima.
Thank you. Marijuana role in motor vehicle crashes pondered by Elaine Goodman. Work Comp Central's Elaine Goodman. While distracted driving, including the use of smartphones, is increasingly being blamed for motor vehicle accidents, a new report from the Insurance Information Institute looks at the role marijuana legalization might play in car crash trends.
You know, I got to tell you one thing. Yesterday, when I was walking from the office to the WCAB, I was passing by the homeless, and I mean, the stench is just awful, but I was halfway, and then I smelt marijuana. Okay. Now, I don't necessarily approve of the marijuana smell in public, but if it's a choice between someone who's sitting in clothes they haven't changed and taken in a shower for a month or smelling marijuana, give me the grass. Mike, please continue.
Okay. Early evidence suggests that recreational marijuana legalization is associated with an increase in traffic accidents. I go, duh. Well, right? If you're driving high, I mean, it's driving impaired, right? I mean,
well, yes, sure. Why not? Is that the end of the story?
Yeah.
What do you guys think? You think the legalization of marijuana has contributed to more traffic accidents? I heard a story that 80% of people that smoke marijuana still get it in the California underground market. They're not going to the pot shops because the taxes make it cost too much. Robert, what do you think?
I just don't know. I just don't think there's enough information out there to really have a conclusion. I know there's going to be anti-pot legalization people who say that there is, and there'll be pro-pot legalization people who say that there isn't. I really just don't know. I can't give you an answer. Sorry, guys.
I know what's taken off is the CBD, the cannabinoid business. Boy, people that are going off swallowing pills and are starting to take CBDs and cannabinoids for their pain and their joint pain and stiffness.
You're talking about edibles?
I'm talking about the marijuana products that do not get your head buzzed and just help your body ease the pain. And that can be either as an edible or as a smokable or whatever.
Well, in relation to if we are having increased traffic accidents in Los Angeles this year,
well,
or
that
last
has
year?
nothing to do with CBDs, because CBDs do not have an intoxicating effect on your mind. That's the whole reason why I'm saying that.
Well, either way, just generally, whether marijuana and the accidents are correlated.
Yeah, the question
increase.
is, legalization of marijuana, has it contributed to more
We
traffic accidents?
We should probably
Yes.
see if there has been more traffic accidents. I don't even know if that's true or not. And then if there is more traffic accidents, perhaps other factors that could affect it. Weather conditions probably seems to be more likely. I mean, we had a really
has
long
been
winter. Huh?
Yeah, in fact, didn't they say officially, which of course I've never believed in, the drought has officially ended finally?
Yes.
Yeah. The drought has ended. Global warming has restarted. The whole bit. No problem. Whatever California governor say.
Well, global warming is a fact of life. It's just a question of whether or not man has contributed or it occurs naturally,
Yeah. I'm sure they had that same conversation during the Ice Age. Your fire in the cave is the reason the glaciers melted there, buddy.
Ultra.
Yeah.
There you go. Well, it's time for the next news story. He's my protege, and he's attorney Robert Ozeron. So read a next news story.
Well, let's continue with the marijuana stories then.
Please do.
Medical marijuana and workers' compensation. With the surge in states permitting the use of medical marijuana, workers' compensation payers are forced to grapple with questions including how much cannabis treatments should cost, what the proper dosages are, and how marijuana usage will be monitored, experts say.
And also, cannabinoids are not addictive.
You mean the edibles that you were talking about?
Forget about edibles. Okay,
It's old thought, I know.
Okay, the fact is that cannabinoid is an extract of the marijuana plant that does not intoxicate your head.
Okay, so cannabinoid is CBD.
Yes, cannabinoid is CBD, and it can be edible, it can be smoked. Hell, knowing you, I guess you could rub it on your skin and you'd probably get it by osmosis. I don't know.
Transdermal.
Yeah, transdermal, exactly. Scott, what's our time, please? 20. Okay, so we got another news story here. And
Do you think workers' compensation should include marijuana as part of the medical?
here's the thing. If it's inexpensive enough, workers' compensation is going to do it.
Well, it's good. Don't you think that's going to create a large hurdle to CNR in cases? Closing them via compromise and release rather than lifetime medical?
I think right now the fact that it's still federally illegal is the big impasse. Once it gets passed on a federal level.
Well, that's not the question. The question is whether or not you think that it's appropriate for marijuana to be dispensed in the workers' comp system. Do you think it's appropriate?
No question about it. It has a proven efficacy. There's no question, especially the cannabinoids.
Do you think it's going to increase the amount of cases that close via stipulation and award rather than a CNR?
I think, if anything, it's going to lower the amount. Oh, I know what you're saying, because this
Why
is
would my clients, if they smoke weed, ever give up lifetime marijuana?
I was just going to say,
Right?
you're saying this because this is a free ticket to buy as much marijuana
This is a
as
free
you
ticket
want.
to puff for the rest of your life, isn't it? One
it's
industrial injury with a recommendation for weed. It's going to
over
become
the counter,
Right?
OTC. Yeah.
So you'll just be showing up at your local dispensary. And the dispensaries, can you imagine how much marijuana they would give out knowing that the insurance company's paying? These people would be smoking like chimneys. I just think it's going to be a very large hurdle. Not that I'm in support of pills. I think the abuse on pain medications is extremely serious.
Well, we've
and
got a story
that's
on the
different
opioids.
Yeah, exactly. It's a different topic. So we do need to reach a middle ground. I just think it would be very difficult for a lot of my younger clients who, smoke. If I told them, you could get lifetime weed, the idea that they would settle that case gone out the window. All right. No chance. And then,
I really don't think it's going to make an impact, frankly.
how much do you think lifetime weed would cost somebody in their 20s, and they smoke whatever it is, $100 a
They
month?
got to get it past UR anyway.
And it's just going to be the same thing: chronic pain, marijuana dispensed, right, nonstop.
Maybe.
And then if he's really had a party, he's gonna be like, he must have been in pain that weekend. Do you know what I mean?
But Mike, if it's an OTC, if it's an over the counter, it doesn't have to go through UR, does it?
Well, if they want the insurance company to pay for it, it's got to go through UR.
I see.
Well, they can still just request the payment probably after they dispense it. They'll have their lien reps. They'll be giving out so much weed.
I still don't think it's going to have that kind of impact.
I think first
it'll
it
be a
has to
game changer.
become federally legal.
Sure, exactly. I think right now that's the first thing, but I do think it would be a game changer if marijuana entered the workers' comp system.
Well, it already has to some extent.
Yeah.
I think they called it, well, yeah. There was a medication that I guess Steve would call a CBD that came out about 7 years ago, and it started with an M, but I can't remember it.
I think that might be the more appropriate step rather than give the people the ability to smoke away. Perhaps something that's more medicinal and directed.
Well,
so
actually,
to take away the, how should I say it? The
I saw
hook
a
of
story
smoking
yesterday
weed.
or the day before that the inventor and then the current owner of Jelly Bellies is now making them with cannabinoids.
Wow.
Yeah.
I always wondered if I could taste that flavor, which that jelly bean is or whatever it is, but I guess this is the weed flavor now.
5 of the most destructive fires in California since 2015 have been linked to PG&E that violated state law or could have done more to make its equipment safer. PG&E in the news again.
Yeah.
Unbelievable, you know?
Yeah, I wonder what happened with that case where the federal judge got mad at them.
Well, I mean,
Have you heard, Robert?
I haven't heard anything about that case, but it's not surprising that the biggest fires, which are forest fires, are caused by the only item running through the forest, generally, the power line, right? So nothing else is really there most of the time.
Yeah. You know, Steve, I really like to get to this baseball contract story.
Well, you are a baseball encyclopedia, so knock it out, baby.
Okay, so Manny Machado signed for $300 million over 10 years with the Padres, San Diego Padres, only to be outdone a week later by Bryce Harper, who signed for 13 years and $330 million with the Phillies, reportedly. And after observing this activity,
Who's the dude on the Angels? He got
hold
like,
on a second.
Okay, yeah.
He's getting there.
Hold on. After observing this activity, this week Mike Trout of the
we go.
Angels signed a 12-year, $430 million contract. Now, guys, I did some computing and I had some help. Okay, this means that Mike Trout, every time he steps on the playing field in the regular season, will take home about almost $109,000 a game.
Yeah, this, according to my calculator, it's $35.83 million.
That actually doesn't sound that high per game,
Well,
right?
consider he's going to
not?
be taxed at least 42%.
But it's baseball, and you
And
play
5%.
double headers sometimes.
What's 162 games? a year?
Exactly. That's what I mean. But if it was football, that's a very modest contract, right? $100,000 a game.
Correct.
That's
Because they
very
only play
modest.
16 a game.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
You know,
Yeah.
But for baseball, that's obviously a much higher amount.
Yeah. Well, I think that, one of the points is that Trout's agent and Artie Moreno, the owner of the Angels, were able to work out what Trout probably would have gotten in free agency.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a good thing, I think. Now, keep in mind, he had 2 years remaining on a 6-year contract. So I guess money now is better than money later. If he wanted to really risk it, he would have played out the 2 years, but then, of course, he could have gotten injured. I sure hope he doesn't get injured.
Don't you think it's a really big obligation to extend that out with 2 years left on the remaining deal? What is it, 13 years plus another 2, so it's 15 years, right?
No, it's a new contract. They discarded the old one.
Oh, okay. Well, at least it starts fresh, so to speak.
How old
Correct.
is he now?
26.
So it's through his prime, through his best baseball years.
Oh,
but
yes.
Do you think a single player is worth that much, period?
Well, it depends on how many rings he puts on their fingers, my friend.
I think anybody is worth what they are paid, period, end of story. If he's paid it, he's worth it.
You've seen him play, correct?
I mean, yeah, he's great. He's a great player. Isn't he on he's Hall of Fame pace right now, of
Correct.
course.
And
but,
he's
Pace,
he's also a good guy, doesn't get into any trouble, doesn't beat
At least
his
not so
girlfriend
far.
or wife.
Sure, and if a baseball player is worth top dollar in that market, I'm sure this player is worth it, Mike Trout. But first of all, Manny Machado, not worth it, in my opinion. I watched him with the Dodgers. They're in the playoffs. Come on now.
Yeah, he's
Come
a
on.
lollygagger.
Yeah, that was tough. They didn't want to re-sign him, much less sign him to such a contract.
Well, I don't think Bryce Harper's contract was worth it either. For example, he had a lousy year last year for him, batted like 267, and that was his free agent year. So
Yeah.
at least I'm glad that they were able to work it out. I think Artie Moreno has got a stomach for one major contract that he's paying out. Unfortunately, Trouts and Pujols will be the same, payable on the same year for 2 years.
That's tough.
So it's the 9th and 10th year of Pujols' contract, first, second year of Trout's contract.
But you should give it to Artie Moreno, I guess, for not getting scared with that Pujols deal to pass up another good deal. You can't let you being, a bad relationship affect future relationships, right?
It's a very, very aggressive maneuver.
And all good points. My name is Steve Appel. You're dialed into WorkComp Matters. We're brought to you by theworkcompcentral.com. If you want the number one location for workers' compensation, credits, blogging, education, check out workcompcentral.com. You can get a 7-day free subscription or pick it up for $1 a day. We're also brought to you by A1 Law, the number one computer management system used by more workers' compensation attorneys. Check it out, 818-357-4120. It's now time to hear from the madman across the water. I'm sure he's got a Trump take. Retired 45-year workers' compensation attorney hanging out in Munich, Germany. Here's his segment, Mr. John Scalia.
Hi, this is John, the same guy across the water, with a weekly report from Munich. Well, begin with my usual Trump takes. The good news about Donald Trump is he supplies a wealth of material. First, there was almost universal international condemnation over his lack of willingness to condemn white supremacists. It merely confirms the fact that he is, in fact, a white supremacist. And he is definitely a racist, and I think this confirms it. The worldwide reaction has been almost universal. The other thing was that Trump decided he needed a photo opportunity showing how religious he is and what a devout Christian he is. So he and the first escort went to services at St. John's Church in Washington, D.C. The interesting thing about that is that St. John's is an Episcopal church. Now, I know a thing or two, or three, about the Episcopal Church. I was a member for many decades, and I was even a lay minister. Let me tell you something, Trump. The Episcopal Church is not pro-life, it is pro-choice. The Episcopal Church is not anti-gay, it ordains gays. In fact, it has a gay bishop. So the Episcopal Church essentially stands for everything you are against. In other words, you wanted a photo opportunity. But don't worry, the press corps is too stupid to ask you about the contradictions, and the American public is too ignorant. Okay, what I really want to talk about this week is the university scandal in America. Why? Because this goes to the heart of what was considered to be the American dream. The American dream is you work hard and you succeed, and that there's a more or less level playing field. But the university scandal, for those of you who have been living under a rock, involves rich people who managed to subvert the admissions processes of universities and get their kids in. So if you have an idiot kid, no problem. You go to one of these high-priced places where they fake the entrance qualifications for your kid, maybe even take the exam, and get them in. The most famous example was a couple of actors who managed to get their kids in for a large price to the University of Southern California. Obviously, this gave me some schadenfreude because I'm a UCLA alum. But UCLA did not escape unscathed either. It turned out the soccer coach was also on the take there. And a number of other universities were mentioned as having accepted fake documents or bribes in order to get people in who should not be qualified. Now, let me tell you why this is so offensive. It's offensive to me because I was working class. Oh yeah, I know. I'm going to hear Robert talk about how he slept on the couch. But you don't go to Beverly Hills High and USC if you're working class. And besides that, I will show Robert how much my mother had to pay for my room, board, and tuition at a private university after all my scholarships. It was a whopping $200. Yes, I was there on a free academic ride. But I went to a very good high school and I succeeded as one of the top students. When I would come home from school every day, my mailbox, my senior year, was full of letters from universities and colleges, all asking me to go there. I sort of assumed this happened to everybody, but as I found out, it's not really all that common. And among all these universities were quite a few of the elite universities in America. Georgetown wanted me to go there. Fordham wanted me to go there. Most of the universities in California wanted me to go there. But it's because I earned it. And when I say I was working class, I mean working class. The people in my neighborhood were butchers. They were mailmen. They were shipyard workers. There was not a professional on the block. We were all working class on the block. So there was no upper middle class. It was strictly working class. In fact, personally, I came from a single parent home. It was just my mother. She was a sole support and she was a bookkeeper who did not earn a lot of money. The selected admissions standards never bothered me. In fact, I didn't care what people got in based on who they knew or how they knew it, because I knew I was among the number of students who was going to get in almost anywhere just based on my performance. I didn't have to worry. So this is not personal in the sense that I felt somebody cheated me out of a spot somewhere. That wasn't going to happen unless there was a school that didn't admit anybody on merit. Okay? But the problem is it does go to the heart of what I think America should be and what America should be all about, which is a level playing field. You should not be able to get your idiot kids into a first-rate university, or for that matter, any university, simply because you have a lot of money. The American dream is everybody has a level playing field and everybody competes equally. And that's how it's supposed to be determined. You know, I live in Munich, and the best university in Munich is called Ludwig Maximilian University. It's right here, not far from where I live. It's also probably the best university on the continent. Yes, Oxford and Cambridge are there, but they're not on the continent. And not only are they not on the continent, they soon will not be in Europe. So Ludwig Maximilian is about the best university in all of Europe. What does it cost to go there? Nothing. Yeah, imagine a country where the best university in the world is absolutely free to go to. Oh, wait, I don't have to imagine it. I live here. Well, that's the report from Munich this week.
And John, as always, thank you very much. It's time for La Familia, Glenn Laughlin, Baby You're a Rich Man, and we'll be back in a few.
How does it feel to be one of the beautiful people? Now that you know who you are, what do you want to be? And have you traveled very far, far as the eye can see? Baby, you're a rich man. Baby, you're a rich man too. You keep all your money in a big brown bag inside a zoo. What a thing to do. How does it feel to be one of the beautiful people? How often have you been there? Often enough to know. What did you see when you were there? Nothing that doesn't show. Baby, you're a rich man. Baby, you're a rich man too. You keep all your money in a big brown bag inside a zoo. What a thing to do. How does it feel to be one of the beautiful
Lachlan and the Cherry Blue Storms on Work Comp Matters. My name is Steve Appel. We're brought to you by theworkcompcentral.com. If you want the number one location, online presence for workers' compensation in California and around the world, check out workcompcentral.com. Well, I think we have another Work Comp Central story, don't we, Mike?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and take it, and then we'll talk about it.
Okay,
so
this
go
is
for
from March 15th on Work Comp Central. The California Supreme Court will not be disturbing a Court of Appeals decision establishing that asymptomatic pre-existing conditions are fair game for apportionment. In December 2018, the first DCA issued a decision in the City of Petaluma versus WCAB.
And, of course, we refer to that simply as the Petaluma case.
Well, why don't you give a summary of what the holding is in that case with regard to pre-existing conditions?
Sure. It's a long-standing legal theory on apportionment called SWAG, stupid, wild-eyed guess. And that's it.
Wild ass guess?
Yes.
But did the court held...
It was asymptomatic. It was an asymptomatic condition that had happened prior to the industrial injury, and the doctor apportioned to it.
Well, that's very common under degenerative conditions, correct? Where they apportion to something degenerative, which technically had never bothered this person.
Had not been symptomatic before.
Never went to the doctor, and for some reason they give apportionment.
The diagnosis of degenerative condition does not mean that it's been asymptomatic.
Well, what we're saying is if it was asymptomatic, right?
Yeah.
There's no prior medical treatment. There's the industrial injury.
It was not labor disabling.
Well, let's just say no treatment at all. Many of my clients have no treatment histories at all, right?
And no disability due to the degenerative condition.
Correct.
And presumably the first time it, quote, lit up, close quote, was after the work-related injury.
Correct.
Yeah.
We have a ton of reports like that. It seems to be standard where a doctor would write apportionment in based on their, I guess you can say, swag of the MRI.
Mm-hmm. And then it's the appropriate time to cross-examine the doctor.
But that's unfortunate for the injured worker. It causes a delay in their case. Oftentimes, doctors are more interested in defending their opinions than...
Doctors are always interested in defending their opinions.
Just like judges.
The doctors don't want some defense attorney or applicant attorney coming into their office asking them questions with no new information, no new evidence, and then the doctor saying, you know what, Mr. Attorney? You're right. I was wrong in my report. Thank you for pointing that out to me. Because of you, I've now changed my opinion.
That does seem a bit rare when you make it seem like that. But other times, if you coach it maybe a different way, you just want to help the doctor articulate his opinions within the code, you can help them.
Well, Dad...
but it's how you present it, of course.
Dad always said, and of course I told you, that the two best ways to get a doctor to change his or her mind, one is to provide new information, because then the doctor said, oh, I didn't know that before. Now that I know this, it's okay to change the mind. And the other way, of course, to do it is with hypotheticals.
Yes. I try to stick away from hypotheticals personally at depositions simply because I always seem to get lost in my own hypothetical when it comes to medical. I'm not a doctor, and I try to stick to the facts of the case in front of us. If there's specific issues that I take with, specific facts I take issue with, like a medical determination, perhaps I can find some research.
Mostly the hypotheticals deal with historical history. For example, if you're dealing with a psych doctor and you have a good faith versus a bad faith personnel action, or you have a history that says this supervisor constantly stressed me every day, and you have an investigative report that says this supervisor was totally nice to your client. Doctor, let's take a hypothetical. Let's presume that a workers' compensation judge in the future finds this history as accurate. Would your opinion then change?
Yes. Yeah. If you were to believe these testimonies versus the others,
correct,
of course, yes. And doctors usually in psych reports will delineate if this would be to believe, then there would be benefits. If not, they should in a proper analysis. But on another hand, I'm thinking about cases where you're trying to take the doctor on medically, like where they say Bell's palsy, for example, cannot be caused by stress. I had a case like that recently, and I was looking into the
Well,
medical
it
literature
can't-
myself.
It can't be caused by stress. It can be aggravated by stress, but not caused by stress.
Well, they are unsure of the cause. They believe it may be viral. I was looking up at
right.
WebMD and every Google. I'm not a doctor, right? But you're trying to figure out, like, why would the doctor say that? And the doctor was so firm that it could not be caused. I don't want to name the case or the doctor or anything
Well,
like
but
that.
did you ask the doctor if it could be aggravated by stress?
Well, not yet.
Oh, okay.
And look, and we're getting to that. That's it's a fresh issue. But oftentimes it's issues like that where they're medical, and a doctor will come down so firm, and you're not sure. I know we're just the legal side of it, but sometimes it's suspicious. The doctor's opinions, even to a layperson, become very suspicious, and often you'll have clients who are so upset that a doctor would wash them out, or give them only minimal body parts or percentages, or say that they don't need a certain procedure done. There's a lot of holes in our system generally, I got to say, especially the one and done QME process, which is if it's a denied claim, it's very hard to get treatment, and you're pinning your hopes on one neutral doctor, and usually they're not that neutral. They're usually retired, conservative, network doctors. They're not.
You do see some interesting names popping up on those panels, though.
Yes, there's just so many there's growing flaws in our system. I see the flaws becoming highlighted as the attorneys start to take advantage of individual issues that or gaps in the system. And I do think these lien filing fees after 863 has been enormous in curtailing the ability of the injured worker to get medical treatment. It ultimately has hurt the value of every injured worker's case, all right? Because you can't build up your reports to substantiate the injuries. You can't document them properly, and many doctors simply stop taking them. Everyone goes to the same doctors after that, and then the defense goes as far as to, how should I say, talk down about the few doctors in the system who would help out injured workers on lien. I would like to see a change in the legislature. I know Gavin Newsom's up there trying to do something. I know looks around the table here, not so great. But
no, that's interesting.
But
I didn't know that he was being active in the workers' comp
he's
arena.
not. He's not in the workers' comp arena. All I'm saying is he's trying to do stuff up there, like and the death penalty, and give benefits to 16-year-old illegals, and that's fine. If maybe you want to extend your attention to the people who need your help here, that would also be appreciated. I think the insurance companies are crushing it right now, and injured workers are suffering.
Speaking of Northern California, San Francisco Supervisor Shannon Walton introduced legislation banning the sale of e-cigarettes in the city unless they got an FDA review. Supporters say that if the measure is approved, it would be the first such prohibition in the country, though it is unclear whether it will pass. Another measure that was introduced would prevent companies that make e-cigarettes from renting city-owned property. I don't eventually want Juul to leave the city. I would like for them to have been gone yesterday, Walton said, and we've been clear about that. Our neighbors have been clear about that, so we definitely would like for them to conduct business somewhere else. Juul is the number one maker of the e-cigarette, and there's no question in my mind whatsoever that there is proven efficacy for the e-cigarettes to help people like me. I don't make a secret about it. I smoke tobacco. Get weaned off and hopefully quit tobacco. Unfortunately, the side effect or the other side of that argument,
nicotine addiction.
You have kids, you have teenagers that never smoked before and are now vaping. So, Robert, I want to ask you, on one side, Juul advertises itself that it is the inexpensive, cost-effective, and successful way for long-term cigarette smokers to help them quit. But on the other hand, you've got young kids that are vaping now. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't see how one smoking company is going to be helping stop smoking. I see them stopping nicotine in exchange for their drug, which is just a business rival, is my understanding. But sure, nicotine is, I guess, the more evil.
Well,
I don't know how to explain it.
Well, it's not. I don't think
I'm
it's
not
the
sure.
nicotine. It's tobacco is the greater of the two evils on vapor.
On vapor instead of on paper, huh?
Well,
I like it.
vapor instead of paper. All right.
Robert, do you think that San Francisco is overreaching in this area by telling those, what's the name of the Jewel? Telling
Jewel.
Jewel to get the heck out?
Well, San Francisco seems to do whatever they want. You're talking constitutionally about whether or not they can tell them that you can run your business in our backyard
Absolutely.
or not?
Of course they can.
Yeah, well, yes, I agree with you
course
there,
they can.
Boss. And if you were going to push come to shove in the courts, hopefully the courts would stand up to that. But do you really want to be in an area where you're not wanted? Answer no. You should move where you're appreciated.
And does San Francisco want to lose all the revenue that's generated by Jewel?
Well, San
This
Francisco's been,
supervisor says so.
San Francisco's been losing revenue left and right. Didn't the medical conference
Oh,
get
yeah,
canceled because of the homeless problem?
Because of the homeless problem, right.
So
Yeah.
I'm sure that pushing out a nice employer from San Francisco, I'd like to tell them, come out to the San Fernando Valley here, no problem.
That's right.
I don't support your product necessarily, but I like jobs. Go for it. Come on out. Let's get some people off the street and to work at your factory. And San Francisco, there, good luck to you.
And, of course, we have the 25,000 jobs that were lost in New York to
Amazon lost.
To Amazon. Hey,
Yeah.
Amazon, come on down
Come
to
on
Southern
down.
California.
Yeah, we'll take you.
Absolutely.
We should explain what a tax break is
Right.
first.
AOC?
Right, just to all of well, yeah, we got to tell her for sure. But she's already the ship is sailed.
By
We
the
have to
way,
make sure we know what that is out here.
Speaking of AOC, Congresswoman Alon is speaking in my hometown of Woodland Hills this
Well,
weekend.
yeah.
Bernie Sanders is speaking in downtown LA on Saturday, and Congresswoman Alon is speaking in Woodland Hills at the Woodland Hills Hilton.
Heavy,
I'm
heavy
not
Jewish
sure.
area, right?
Heavy.
I'm not sure. I don't know that Congresswoman. I mean, what is her name again?
She is the congresswoman from Minnesota. She is the junior congresswoman. She wears the turban.
The hijab, or is that what they call
and
it?
she came out
I don't know.
talking. She came out talking how Israel has to do with money, and then she apologized for it. And then Pelosi came out and say she doesn't understand the words she's using, or she has different experiences. What those words, trying to kowtow to her, you know what I mean?
So
Yeah.
that congressperson is coming to speak in Woodland Hills
She
Saturday?
is coming to speak to Woodland Hills this Saturday.
And then I believe the House tried to pass a resolution condemning
To
her,
condemn.
but not her specifically because they didn't want to
It
point
was
it out.
They watered
watered.
it
It was
down.
watered it down. Yeah.
And then all the Republicans just didn't want to take part in the joke and the charade at that point, right? For the most part, they're just they
don't
checked
know.
out after
I
that
think a fair amount of Republicans voted on that.
for the look, but a fair amount also just checked out because they said this is kind of baloney at
I
this
didn't
point.
see the voting on it, though.
Yeah,
I tell you what's interesting is that the House voted unanimously to have all of the Mueller report released. I thought that was interesting. When was the last time they had a unanimous vote?
well,
Is
there's-
it going to say anything?
I think that's why it's unanimous because one side is hoping it says something, the other side sure it isn't. So that's why they want it out. Both sides want it out.
Right.
As opposed to if both sides didn't want it out, where they're both one is sure something's bad going to happen.
Well, I've heard concerns that people mentioned in the report who have not been charged with crimes may not be treated fairly with their names released as part of the Mueller report.
Well, what's been fair about the Mueller investigation?
I think Mueller's a pretty good guy myself.
It seemed to have been an issue of Russian collusion
It's a
at
waste
first, right?
of time and a waste of money.
There's bracket-
It's supposed to be about Russian collusion,
But it
and
ended up
there
being
is
about
none.
it ended up being about some Facebook ads that some
I-
Russians
Issue
bought.
creep happened with Hillary Clinton,
The-
Bill Clinton.
The only collusion is between Russians and the Facebook. I mean, come on.
I think there might be probably if there's any collusion and fraud in the election last time, it was probably at the DNC, right?
Well, let's see what the
yeah.
Mueller report says. That's
Yeah.
the point.
That's probably the funnier part is that there was such an enormous fraud that took place in the last election. It wasn't the Russian fraud; it was the fraud at the DNC.
With regard
Right.
to what specifically?
Bernie versus Hillary, and the primary being totally rigged against Bernie.
Against Bernie. Robert's right. Yes.
This is a total rigging job, and this is an enormous fraud. 50% of the ticket in the last election is, undoubtedly got there by fraud of some sort, or and then everyone else is seemingly angry at the other 50% where there's no evidence of fraud. Unbelievable.
Yet, again, we'll see what Mueller says.
I got you. But if we had Hillary, then we'd have 100% accountability of fraud at that point, and then everyone would be happy. I don't know.
Please.
Don't get me started on Hillary Clinton.
I know, Hillary going away. I know, it's too long.
Give me another news story and hurry.
All right. How about no more room for apprehended migrants? The Border Patrol released 50 recently apprehended migrants here Tuesday. The first of several hundred border crossers who officials say will soon be freed because there is no room to hold them. Normally, the Border Patrol would soon transfer the migrants to the Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, to be processed, and in many cases, placed in detention facilities. But officials have said that both agencies have run out of space due to the recent influx of Central American families.
No room at the inn.
Story on Disney. Homer Simpson probably won't become the newest member of the Avengers, but anything's possible now that Disney owns 21st Century Fox. 1 year after the Walt Disney Company announced the $71.3 billion merger, it's official. The deal, which closed today at 12:02 Eastern Time, reshapes the media landscape and makes Disney an even greater entertainment behemoth. Did I pronounce that right?
Behemoth.
Behemoth. Thank you very much. In bolstering its trove of characters and stories, the acquisition also puts Disney in a stronger position to take on Netflix and other streaming companies where it launches its own service, Disney Plus, later this year.
Forgotten funds. When employees forget to cash their checks or bank accounts go untouched for years, California businesses are supposed to let the state know.
Mike never forgets his check. I just occasionally forget to give it to him.
But because so few comply with a state law to report the forgotten funds, there's an estimated $24 billion in unclaimed property sprinkled across the state that the comptroller's office is trying to put back in Californians' pockets.
I would put it into the pockets of those co-ops and halfway houses, and let's get the damn homeless off the street.
The California unclaimed property law requires insurance companies, multinational corporations, banks, real estate agencies, and other businesses to transfer unclaimed funds to the state controller, usually after 3 years of inactivity. And I think that there's a website that you can go on to see that if you haven't, I think it's called claimit.com or something. I'm not exactly sure. I heard about it, but I didn't get a chance to write it down.
Okay, Robert, time to take your eyes off your phone and read potentially your last news story of the night. And while he's looking at that, I will tell you, my name is Steve Appel. You're dialed into Work Comp Matters. We're brought to you by WorkCompCentral.com. If you want the #1 location for blogging, education, credits, the whole ball of wax, check out WorkCompCentral.com.
And this is an interesting story about Facebook and discrimination, potentially. Facebook, under broad pressure to settle a lawsuit, agreed to stop allowing anyone advertising jobs, housing, or credit to show those ads only to people of a certain race, gender, or age group.
Agreed. Good. That is a good story. Scott, what's our time? 58. You guys got any burning desires? We're towards the end. What's happening? Good show so far.
March Madness. I got a bad case of it.
Virginia is #1. Is that right?
No, overall #1 is Duke.
Oh, okay. Duke is #1 again.
Yeah, but
it's tough to bet against Krzyzewski, right?
Right, especially with Zion Williamson back off the DL.
Mm-hmm.
He's a young LeBron. He plays like LeBron. He drives
How about that?
Drives the lane and such.
Robert, any burning desires? You just going to go home and relax, or go home and work?
Well, it's I'm going to go home and work a little bit. We'll try to eat a little dinner, basic stuff.
Good for you. You buying dinner? You taking it in, or are you making it?
Probably try to find some leftovers first. Try to save
there you
some
go.
money, right?
There you go.
Eat
I
at
always
home.
try and find leftovers and eat at home to save money. No question about it. It's been another great show, guys. You're dialed into Work Comp Matters. My name is Steve Appel. We're brought to you, of course, by theworkcompcentral.com. Check out workcompcentral.com. We're also brought to you by A1 Law, 818-357-4120. And, of course, Santa Monica Tickets, 310-395-8587. From my right-hand man, the Chief of Staff, the Dr. Michael Zyma. From my protege, Attorney Robert Ozeron. For Scott Walton of Uncle Studio Engineering the show. Retired workers' compensation John Scalia back in Munich, Germany. And, of course, all the good people back at WorkCompCentral.com who continue to support and approve this project, including but not limited to Kristen Chavez. My name is Steve Appel. We'll see you again next week for another edition of Work Comp Matters.